It is now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker at the intersections. He's at the intersection of politics and justice. Tunç Soyer is a politician and lawyer, and he will share his thoughts on redefining the public interest. So after earning his law degree, Tunç Soyer pursued his postgraduate studies in international relations at Webster University in Switzerland, and further specialized in the European Union at Dokuz Eylül University. Choosing a career in politics, he served 3 consecutive 5-year terms as mayor, most recently leading the city of Izmir from 2019 to 2024. Prior to this, he was elected mayor of Seferihisar, pardon my pronunciation, a coastal district of Izmir, serving 2 terms from 2009 to 2019. He demonstrated a strong commitment to sustainability as he introduced the Città slow city in Italian movement, which originated from Italy, and he brought it to Seferihisar. This initiative focuses on promoting sustainable living and boosting the economies of small towns on an international scale. So under his leadership, this model expanded across 7 regions of Turkey and the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. In recognition of his efforts, he was elected Vice President of the World Città Slow Network in 2013, headquartered in Italy. A year later, in 2014, he was elected Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Association of Social Democratic Municipalities. He also has done many other things that I have not time to develop now, but it's an honor and a real pleasure to have you here with us this morning. Please welcome Mr. Soyer.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. In 30 minutes' time, I would like to explain my ideas about public interests, and within this context, how about our behaviors, ecological behaviors, economical behaviors affect this concept, and how it may change the idea of creating a better and a comprehensive public interest. And then I will try to explain peace, solidarity, and local democracy within the frame of circular culture. And finally, I will give 4 concrete examples about different dimensions and different phases of public interest. Etymologically, public refers to a particular community or the collective body of citizens, and it derives from the Latin publicus, signifies concerning the state or for the use of all. The related noun publicum has meanings like public interest, general welfare, the state property, and the public domain. We use the word public to describe government actions. Sometimes we use to describe the people, citizens of a country, and sometimes even to mean every single one of us. For example, when we say public university, it implies a state institution serving the community. Public health and public opinion are about all of us. Public places like parks are for everyone to enjoy. And making something public means making accessible to and owned by the community. Public is fundamentally tied to serving the common good and the social interest. What binds people together as a community is their shared commons, their common interests. Therefore, the concepts of public and public interests are strongly linked to each other. The word common means joint, shared, or mutual. Our commons define the public interest. But what exactly are those commons? For example, water, soil, and air are fundamental resources shared by all and necessary for life. In other words, nature constitutes our most expensive and vital commons. Therefore, a harmonious relationship with nature is the ultimate public interest. Today, under the influence of capitalism, the commons are disappearing. The Anthropocene epoch, which is the human epoch, dominant for the last 300 years, has become an era where it is possible and legitimate to destroy everything for the sake of greed and profit. It became possible for our commons to be privately owned by individuals. In the Anthropocene, humanity wrongly assumed it could dominate nature. We disconnected from nature, and the crises emerged like energy, food, poverty, wars, and democracy. Harmony with nature, therefore, is essential for our common good. States decide what is the public interest. Sometimes it's a mine, sometimes it's a forest. But which takes priority? That's for policymakers to decide. The question is whether gold is more valuable than a forest that provides water, soil, and clean air. Today, the sustainability of the human age is in question, and humanity faces the risk of extinction. Artificial intelligence has the potential to influence humanity's future. AI is evolving beyond a mere instrument, becoming a potential agent capable of designing new genetic programs, vitalizing inorganic creations, and perhaps even creating new forms of life. Whether this leads to a better future remains to be seen. We need an urgent action plan now, before it's too late. We must admit that life does not exist for human beings. Rather, human beings exist for life. The Renaissance led to a human-oriented culture. Now, we need a life-oriented one. Therefore, we must create policies in harmony with nature. For example, in Europe, the adoption of the Green Deal proposes a comprehensive solution. The concept of public interest will be key in successful implementation of new green policies. Acting will contribute to institutionalize the commons of public interest. Sometimes, even if the public interest is for the good of people, it may cause resistance. People may think that an action taken for the public interest will harm their interests. For example, a decision to pedestrianize a street may be objected by the businesses on that street. In these cases, it would be good to define the public interest in short, medium, and long terms. This differentiation helps people to better understand the decision and its implementation. Medium and long-term approaches may give time to understand better the realities rather than perceptions. There will also be an opportunity to communicate and implement education programs. The public interest needs to be defined specifically targeting vulnerable groups and implemented with this in mind. The answer to the question of what constitutes public interest in a neighborhood is found in the extent to which it meets the demands, expectations, and grievances of vulnerable groups. An understanding that excludes them and does not prioritize them is incompatible with public interest. Our ecological behaviors. First, we must remember our shared vital needs. The common good, a life in harmony with nature. We have forgotten these values in the Anthropocene era. This new perspective on what really matters will guide behavioral change. Harmony with nature is a public interest pursued through state action. State decisions must consider their impact on nature. Consequently, the harmony with nature principle must guide state philosophy. Society should also demand for it and hold for the state accountability. This is not a matter of choice, but an imperative for survival. Given that the state regulates social life and organizes coexistence, citizens must assume a guiding and supervisory role. This necessitates a transparent, accountable, and participatory governance to facilitate citizens' participation. Economic behavior. Economics teaches us that resources are limited, whereas the needs are unlimited. However, better integrating human civilization as part of the ecosystem reveals nature's capacity to meet diverse human needs within its cycles. Furthermore, nature's infinite energy constantly creates new power resources through scientific advancements. The anthropocentric suprematist's view of nature as limited is incorrect. We must replace this finite resource mindset with a circular economic philosophy that learns from nature's infinity and utilizes its sustainability. The idea that humanity's needs among millions of species are unlimited is a dangerous fallacy. This misconception has made the world unlivable for most and enriching only the few. We must abandon this greed-driven system that leaves impoverished societies with decaying values. We need a new economic understanding. In Turkish, there is a saying, demanding as reasonable as one can, as reasonable as an ant. This doesn't mean rejecting technology or increasing quality of life. Instead, it enables fair wealth distribution and the fight against poverty. By confronting our limitless ambitions and the fetish of bigger and faster, we can discover the true meaning and the depth of life. We can find new ways of owning things, like sharing what we use and sharing ownership. We are smart enough to figure out how to live sustainable. The harmony between economy and ecology must be more than phonetic. True behavioral change in those topics will unlock a happier life. The world is entering a new era of global sharing of critical land and resources. Global power dynamics have been changing. We are transitioning from a unipolar world to a multipolar one. Meanwhile, populist and authoritarian governments are rising globally, increasing threat of war. Pro-war economies are expanding and defense spendings are escalating worldwide. These indicators imply that the threat of World War III is getting closer, perhaps already underway, as Harari suggests. This trend signifies a global retreat from democracy. States are moving away from democracy under the pretexts of regional balances, strategic goals, global power distribution, and similar excuses. At the end, the majority of the people is becoming more vulnerable. Peace is essential for both economics and ecological changes. Without this fundamental public interest, it is impossible to implement policies that serve the common good. We need a cultural shift to prioritize anti-war advocacy and peace building. This will then pave the way for economic and ecological change. This shift may require a new definition of culture, circular culture. Circular culture goes beyond temporary solutions to individual problems. It aims for a holistic transformation of life and our cities. Harmony with nature, harmony with each other, harmony with the past, and harmony with the change. These are 4 pillars of circular culture. Harmony with nature is the first pillar. Nature is not an environment where humanity positioned at the center. It is the life itself. Our cities today are not embarrassing nature. We must recognize that nature is not merely an object, but the very subject of life. Second pillar, the harmony with each other, is the foundational principle of democracy and peace. This represents equal citizenship for all at all times. Third pillar is the harmony with the past. It recognizes that the future cannot be built without drawing on the diverse cultures of history. Civilizations offer endless inspiration for navigating an ever-changing world. Fourth pillar is the harmony with change. Heraclitus, the ancient Greek philosopher from Ephesus, Izmir, said that change is the only constant in life. This is crucial for preventing culture becoming a dogma or an ideology. Therefore, harmony with change means building a more just and equal social life in alliance with cities globally. Briefly, circular culture is essential for serving public interest. Local democracy and solidarity. When it comes to establishing public interest, local democracy and solidarity are the essentials. Democracy is one of the most important social innovations of humanity. It rises upon transparency, accountability, rule of law, participation, inclusiveness, social peace, and justice. It is not just about going to the polls every 4 or 5 years. It's a way of life with active and ongoing citizens' participation. Historically, the spirit of democracy originated in small communities. This may offer a path to solve the current democracy crisis in large-scale communities like metropolises and nation-states. The dissemination of best practices at gatherings will foster the proliferation, diversification, and enrichment of such examples, creating a dynamic of reciprocal learning and inspiration. Solidarity is essential for translating the universal concept of the common good into the best practices of local action. This will empower citizen science to support activism and inclusive change. Without access to good examples, we lack the motivation and power to create change and resist threats of the future. Solidarity, both between individuals and between cities and societies, has 2 key components. First one is transfer of knowledge and experience. Second one is initiative and commitment to defend common interests together. Against the rapid spread of misinformation, these 2 components will accelerate truth, reveal reality, and open new spaces for defending public interests. Solidarity reinforced the new partnerships with public authorities, civil society, private sector, academia, and grassroots organizations, which will create systemic change. Strengthening local democracy and solidarity fosters hope for a better future where the public interests prevails over greed. History reminds us that progress or better future comes with the hands of good, optimistic, and hopeful people. Finally, I will try to support what I'm saying with 4 examples. Sponge City. This is an example for living in harmony with nature. Global climate change resulting with global warming is triggering drought all over the world, but mostly in the Mediterranean region. In Izmir, there is a significant amount of agricultural production: olives, grapes, figs, small cattle breeding, etc. There has been a huge decline in the last 10-15 years in the water wells spread across all agricultural areas of the city for agricultural production. The water level, which was 15-20 meters deep only 15-20 years ago, has dropped to 250-300 meters in the last few years. As you know, more than 75% of water use is used in agricultural production. Therefore, especially in agricultural production, the product patterns should be replanned. For example, products that require less water should be preferred, and water-saving methods should be developed. Within this understanding, we have to put forward a model targeting rainwater harvesting with the sponge city applications. The application was to ensure that the water to be obtained from the rain that falls in a year reaches half of the amount of water consumed in the city. In this framework, we developed many examples of applications. For example, we developed a system to meet all the water needs of a school with rainwater. We have also made it possible to collect rainwater to irrigate flowers and trees in a cemetery. Especially in agricultural areas, we have developed methods to prevent rainwater from flowing into the sea and make it possible to use it in production. We see overall that it is possible. The second example is urgent solution team, which means leaving no one behind. Izmir is a city that the Gulf at the center and the districts surrounds it. Those who live near the Gulf are the ones who are close to the stage, but the higher areas and back neighborhoods of the city do not see the stage and do not get a share of the wealth and prosperity that the Gulf produces. For this reason, I thought that while managing the city, we should first work to eliminate the imbalance between the back neighborhoods and the neighborhoods close to the stage. With this in mind, which we called the urgent solution team, it was possible to mobilize the entire institutional capacity of the municipality to those neighborhoods at the back. First, the teams collect the demands of citizens living in all houses in the selected neighborhoods. The most demanded needs are identified. These requests are first referred to the relevant units of the municipality, which then they decide how to resolve the request in the fastest and the most desirable way. For example, suppose there is a request for a basketball court. The evaluation is made in the light of parameters such as where that court will be built, whether there is a suitable zoning plan for it, whether there is a need for expropriation, whether a share can be allocated from the budget. Finally, representatives of all relevant units make on-site determination with the mayor, me, myself. If appropriate, the citizen's request is quickly fulfilled. With the urgent solution team, even if the service in question is within the strategic plan of the municipality, it is brought forward and the expectations of the citizens are prioritized. The immediate solution was a bottom-up implementation, and on the other hand, Chitta-Slow Metropolis can be given as an example of a top-down implementation. Chitta-Slow is a local development model for cities under 50,000 inhabitants. Born in Italy in 1999, Today, it has turned into a network covering 300 cities in 30 countries. 15 years ago, when I became the mayor of Seferihisar with a population of 40,000, we added Seferihisar to the network as Turkey's first Çittaş law. 10 years later, when I became the mayor of Izmir with a population of 4.5 million, I started to think about how to weave Izmir into that network. In our conversations with Çittaş law headquarters, I explained that in order to adapt the model to the metropolis, the city should be divided into small implementation areas. The neighborhood and village administrations in Turkish legislation gave opportunities to facilitate this step. Izmir consists of 1,293 neighborhoods and villages. If we applied these criteria to each neighborhood individually, it would be possible to turn the entire city, the metropolis, into Çittaş law. The secret to the success of Çittaş law metropolis was to apply the Çittaş law criteria one by one in all neighborhoods and villages. Therefore, we had to set such criteria so that all of them could be implemented and applied even in neighborhoods with different characteristics, and thus ensure the transformation of each administrative unit. The neighborhoods and villages that are transformed one by one will enable the transformation of the city as a whole. Let individual success stories transform a metropolis of 4.5 million people into a Çittaş law. We started by selecting 2 pilot neighborhoods with different social fabric. Demirköprü in Karşıyaka and Pazaryeri in Basmane. Those 2 neighborhoods have very different characteristics. Pazaryeri is a neighborhood where low-income people of the city lives and where there are many immigrants. Demirköprü, on the other hand, is a neighborhood where middle and upper middle income people live with relatively higher welfare and comfort conditions. We put forward the same criteria in both neighborhoods. We put a lot of thought into the criteria and developed them in consultation with Çittaş law headquarters. This process took a lot of time. However, when the implementation started, we achieved a very important success in both neighborhoods. The great satisfaction of the neighborhoods showed that we were on the right track. For this reason, we decided to start the work in 15, 20 more neighborhoods that we immediately identified. Thus, we would move forward ring by ring, wave by wave. The last example is One Rent, One Home. On October 30, 2020, we experienced an earthquake in Izmir in which 118 people lost their lives and thousands of houses collapsed or became uninhabitable. From the day after the earthquake, aid started to arrive from all over the country and even from all over the world. However, the biggest problem was to get the earthquake victims out of their tents before winter came. Based on this determination, I decided to start a campaign. Public resources and regulations were insufficient to establish the public interest financially. I believed that we could realize the public interest through solidarity and people's participation. Crowdfunding could be a good financing model for the implementation of the public interest. With the One Rent, One Home campaign, which we launched, we collected an amount that would cover 5 months of rent for thousands of people affected by the earthquake who started living in tents. 5 months will cover winter time and give some time for government bodies to find sustainable solutions for the victims. In the conditions of that day, the monthly rent of a 100 square meter house was about 2,000 liras, and we found thousands of donors who would donate 10,000 liras for each earthquake-affected family. 1 month after the earthquake, we dismantled all the tents and provided everyone with shelter for the winter. These are only a few examples of public interest applications during my mayorship. I know that a better future of local democracy will be shaped with so varied and so valuable efforts of local authorities in harmony with each other, with nature, with the past, and with the change itself. Thank you so much for your attention and for your patience.